Thursday. It's Pastor Karen again with a Thoughtful Thursday. I wasn't really sure. I had so much stuff going on in my head this week, and I kept thinking, oh, maybe I'll share that on my Thoughtful Thursday, or maybe I'll share that on my Thoughtful Thursday. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to share with you all today. But a friend of mine sent me an email yesterday. Actually, I just read it today, with an article about radical joy for hard times. And I thought, wow, that sounds kind of like what I might need, radical joy for hard times. And it's so interesting. I thought I would just share with you a little bit about the article and kind of my take on it. So this concept of radical joy for hard times is really a movement that this woman created, more out of like an ecological place, about how we can take places that have been maybe decimated or ruined, like actual places, maybe old factories, or maybe forests that have been burned by wildfires, or streams that have been polluted, a variety of things, and how she gathers people together to kind of mourn the loss of these places, and mourn the loss of this the place that this location fed into this circle of life, kind of. And so she encourages people to go to these places to mourn the loss, but then to leave something of beauty there. So sometimes it's just creating a visual picture out of some rocks in the area, maybe like a peace sign or a heart. She says so often when we visit those places, we don't look for the beauty. And so when we look for the beauty, she'll find a flower, just like a stray flower, and she kind of creates this little monument, or this little kind of remembrance of joy, some kind of joy in this place that has so much loss. There's a lot of people who kind of look to her like maybe that's like a Native American kind of tradition as well, in that this is all part of the earth, and whether it's destruction or growth, that it's all part of this circle of life. But I love the idea of this kind of finding joy in the hard times, in the places where right on the surface we might only see despair, right on the surface we might only see destruction, or we might only see sadness or grief. But where, if we look, if we notice, where might we see some beauty? And how might we not just notice the beauty, but something very intentional about creating something beautiful in the midst of this destruction, in the midst of this hard place, in the midst of this grief or this loss. And I started to think about what that might look like in our day-to-day lives. Maybe we're not, visiting a worn down factory. Maybe we're not visiting a polluted river that doesn't give us fresh water. Maybe we're not doing those things, but certainly we've had a lot of grief and a lot of loss and a lot of really kind of dead places and destructive places in our own lives. Of course, over the last year with the pandemic, for sure. And yet I think as we start to move out of our kind of quarantine life, right, as we start to move back into socializing and gathering, safely, of course, but as we start to do that, are there times where we can celebrate the joy of that, where we can recognize that even though we're not quite done with the grief, right, we're not quite done with the destruction, we're not quite done feeling badly about this place that we're in, can we find beauty, and can we find this radical joy? And then when we find it, what do we do about it? So again, I read this article this morning, and it's been kind of like brewing around in my head for the most good portion of the day, and a few things that kind of came to my mind is I wondered if like in our backyards, just in our backyards, right, as we're spring cleaning, as we're moving away maybe some of the old leaves and the dead branches, and how might we create a visual, right? How might we be able to draw a picture with those leaves? I have some Easter flowers sitting on my back porch, right? I enjoyed them. I watered them, and it's time for me really to put the bulbs back into the ground. And I thought about that today too. And when we had this beautiful life, the flowers die off, and we're left with these bulbs, these kind of nondescript bulbs, and we put them back in the ground, and then we kind of forget about them, right? Until next spring, hopefully, we see those beautiful flowers again. And so I kind of thought that maybe when I plant my bulbs, just so that I don't forget them, so that I don't forget that there was this nondescript kind of brown, almost dead looking bulb in the ground, that I might surround my area that I plant my new bulbs in today, or this weekend, with new flowers, right? With just some flowers for the summer. Just so that when I look at that beauty, the fresh flowers, now I'm reminded of what's in the ground there. And I think that in so many ways that's how God wants us to live our lives. That's the promises that God makes for us, that God says that God will never leave us in our despair, right? Well, we're never going to get left alone there. That there's always something new coming, that there's always new mercies every morning. So even on a bad day, the next day can be filled with joy. And we can find moments of that. We can find pieces of that. So as we start to kind of re-enter our lives post-COVID, in the middle of COVID, as we're moving out of COVID, whatever you're calling it, I think that it would be so helpful for all of us to find pieces of joy, moments of joy, little tiny, even microcosm, seconds of joy. And I would hope that as we start to notice those moments of joy and that beauty that surrounds us, spring is here and the flowers and the trees are budding, that we might take that extra time, not just notice it for a second, but to take that extra time to kind of document or build, or even just take a picture and start a photo album on your phone of beauty, of joy, of things that you're seeing. I'm going to try that this week. And so I'll give you that homework too, because it's kind of going to be my homework as well. And we'll see what next week brings. And maybe I'll have some pictures or some ideas of things that I was able to do intentionally. And if you have some too, I would love to see them. So if you want to share them with me, that would be amazing. So I will be praying for all of us this week that we can find moments of joy, this radical joy in hard places, this joy that we know comes from God, right? This amazing gift to see the good in the bad. I hope that you have a great week. Take care.